Hi, I'm Angus Kress Gillespie, your host for Old Ways in New Jersey. I'm here today with Chris Cree, who's founder of the Cree Wine Company in Hampton, New Jersey. This is one of the best places in New Jersey to taste and learn about wine. It's a wine bar, wine school, and private event space in the beautifully restored Perryville Inn, which is an 1813 farmhouse and tavern located in Hunterdon County. It's a handsome 2.5-story brick building with 6 fireplaces. I recently went there for a wine tasting with my family, and I found it to be an eye-opening experience. So it's my pleasure to welcome Chris Cree to our studio today. Chris, tell us a little bit about growing up in Hunterdon County, New Jersey.
It was a great place to grow up. I moved from Bridgewater when I was in the summer of 6th grade. They called me the city kid when I moved there because it was very rural, and Bridgewater was not a big city, obviously. But no, it was a lot of fun. Suddenly we had a little mini farm that we lived on, and it was just a great experience to grow up sort of in a much more country atmosphere. It was very cool.
And then moving along, tell us a little bit about your work at Central Liquors in Flemington.
Yeah, so that's where I got my start. The drinking age back then was 18. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I started there in January of my senior year in high school. And when I was already very interested in food and wine. I loved to cook with my mom. My parents traveled a lot. My stepdad was a TWA pilot, and he would bring back wine and food from wherever he was. And it just sparked this huge interest. And so I studied it. The owner passed away shortly after I started working there. And I think, and his daughter and son-in-law took over. They didn't really know much about wine. And so I think I was just a pain in their neck kid. I would ask all these questions. Why don't we have this wine? Why don't we have that wine? And they finally said, here's a budget. Buy whatever you want. Don't stick us with a lot of wine. And so I started, typing up a newsletter on a typewriter and taking it to the print store and getting a copy, then mailing it and doing a mailing list and doing wine tastings that sort of nobody was doing at that time. And that's sort of how it all started.
And how were you able to visit so many different wine regions?
So the advantage of having a stepfather who was a TWA pilot, I think you were 18 when we got what they called the term pass. And you could go into any airport. If there was space available on TWA, you could go. So I made a lot of contacts buying and selling all this wine, and I would work, and then I would go to Italy, I would go to France, I would go to Germany, I would go to California, and I would set up visits. And this was a job I think I'm, quote unquote, saving money to go to college and get a real job one day, and ended up turning it, into a career down the road. So, yeah.
You had a lot of lucky breaks.
I did. Doors kept opening. Yeah, it was kind of nice.
In 1996, as I read, you became Master of Wine. Tell us about that process. I know it's lengthy.
It's lengthy. It's got 3 parts, really. There's a blind tasting. There's a written exam, which is at the time it was 4 days of examinations, and now it's 5, I believe. And then there's a written dissertation. And it covers, the tasting, we do 12 blind wines a day over 3 days, so 36 wines. We have to identify from taste and smell and visual clues the country, the region, the grape variety, method of production, vintage, and a number of other questions. And then the written exam looks at all aspects. So it's really a business degree about the wine business. It looks at grape growing first, so everything that happens in a vineyard, trellising, training, pruning, everything from the time you plant a vineyard till you pick a grape. And then the second part, the second day, is all about winemaking. So everything that happens once you pick the grape until you put it in the bottle. The third day is the business of wine. The fourth day was sort of a larger essay. And it's all essay questions on the written exam, so no multiple choice. And then if you pass all that, then you write your dissertation.
Wow.
Like I said, it's kind of a fun thing to study for, but the exam is a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Wow. I'm not ready for it. What about the retail business in Clinton in the 1990s?
So I had that for from 89 to 2004. We bought it. It was really just a country liquor store, and then sort of reinvented it as a wine shop, eventually adding some gourmet products, and a little bit of a gourmet store. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was a time when the wine business was really growing in the U.S., and the internet was starting to be a factor. And I was there until 2004, eventually decided to move the business, in a sense, to Bernardsville. I sold that part of the business, and then we opened a store in Bernardsville, and I had that for 10 years before I left there.
And then the Chelsea Wine Vault in Manhattan.
Yeah, that was another great project. We had a space in the Chelsea market. It's now moved out because the rents probably were too high. But yeah, did that for 3 or 4 years, and then eventually left to just focus back on my business in New Jersey. 2 young kids at the time. But we had a lot going on there. We had a wine school. We did some auctions in our cellar. We had a wine storage facility, and of course, full wine retail and online business, in which was a pretty trendy, hip place, and still is, I think. So in a great neighborhood too.
And then your involvement with the 56 Degree Wine in Westminster?
Bernardsville. I'm sorry, Bernardsville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was about 10 years that I had that. Again, that was a unique concept. We had the entire store was temperature controlled to keep wines at the proper thing, and we focused really on like small family domains, and we sold big Bordeaux chateaus and things like that as well. But the real focus was finding value in small, lesser known family-owned wineries, a lot of them organic, biodynamic, just producing really fantastic sort of authentic wines from all over the world, which is an extension of what I do now still.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us about the work at Terminal C and
So in 2014-15, I was approached by OTG on the go, and they do restaurants in airport terminals. And at that time, it was a pretty generic group of restaurants in airports, and these guys saw a opening to upscale the restaurant and food experience. And so they brought in me to do the wine for, I think it was 21 or 22, not all of them were restaurants, some of them were more like kiosks, but there was at least 15 or 16 serious restaurants. So to do a wine list and gave us free reign. I mean, we could put anything we wanted on there. So the wine experience and the food experience took a quantum leap immediately. Wow. And that was a lot of fun. Because I would go in there and look around and see all these great wines, and it was really kind of.
Is it still that way in terms?
Yeah. In fact, and then in fact they've redone I think A now, which is even newer and more modern and fantastic. So.
And then your experience as managing editor at Wine Access.
Yeah, so we were a big direct-to-consumer, probably one of the biggest in the country. And I was managing editor there, which was kind of a jack of all trades. We sourced wines, we tasted wines, we would find wines that would fit our model and our market, create an offer, write a great story about them. It was funny because my boss, my employer, said, what do we really do? We're like we're content producers. We write stories about wine. That's how we sell wine. And I really learned a lot about internet marketing and that kind of thing from there. We were very successful. Eventually got sold, and then I went on to work at Pluckham & Inn for a little. For 5 years.
Is Wine Access an internet thing or a paper thing?
No, it's internet. It's strictly internet. No shop. No. Just 100% online.
Wow.
Yeah, it's still going.
Very modern.
Yeah. They were on the cutting edge. Yeah.
And then your experience working at the Pluckham Inn in Bedminster?
Yeah, so they brought me in after I left Wine Access to develop their online sales. And that was it is still a great restaurant and very busy. So how do you make a busy restaurant busier? You can't put in more seats, you can't charge more. So essentially I helped them grow their wine business on the internet and through events in time periods when it was closed. So Saturday afternoon we would do a wine tasting or in the store, or on a weeknight when one of the private rooms wasn't used, we would do a wine dinner. So it was a great experience. I never had worked in the restaurant business, and restaurants sort of pull you, even though I was there really to manage the online business. You end up really in the workings of a restaurant, which is fascinating. So I got a lot of experience there.
And now we get to the big deal. What led to purchasing the Pluckham Inn?
Well, you mean Cree Wine Company?
Yeah.
And at the Perryville Inn. And so I had a friend who had financed that business, and it went out of business in 2012, and he ended up owning the building and closed. And so it sat there empty, and it was a shame. It was this beautiful 1813 farmhouse, brick face, with a lot of history. And just sat there, and that's not a good thing for a business or a building. It starts to go to seed a little bit. And he would ask me just about every year, like, is there, because I lived in Clinton, right down the road. I'm in the wine business, and he would ask me every year, is there anything we would do with that? And I said, no, every year, because I didn't know anything about restaurants. And then after, 5 years at the Pluckman Inn, I sort of, came to, I said, I might have an idea that might work there. And so went off and we created Cree Wine Company, which is definitely wine centric, but also very much food oriented. We have a fantastic chef. We're a full-on restaurant 6 days a week. We're online wine cellars. We do a lot of classes and events and tastings and dinners, but it's all about bringing food, wine together. And then all the wines that you taste there, you can buy and take home. So it's kind of a different way and I think a better way or a more fun way to buy wine.
It's funny how all these factors sort of led to that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like all the travel, it's, based on a lot of my experiences with wineries, and tasting and see how food and wine were so integral, like when you traveled around Europe. And so it was just an idea that why don't we bring something like that here?
You couldn't have done it when you were young. You needed all
Without a doubt. It would have been a disaster.
You needed those prior experiences.
Yeah, it was a culmination of a lot of things through my life.
And how did you go about renovating the building?
Well, like any old building, we kind of joke it's twice as long and twice as much because when you start, it was in pretty bad shape and it really needed a full overhaul. And then when we started taking it down to the bones, you started finding things that needed bigger repair. And what a lot of people don't realize is that building actually sat right where Route 78 is now. And in 1960, so it was an inn from 1813 to 1900, and then it was a farmhouse till 1960. And then in 1960, it got taken by eminent domain, and it was going to be demolished unless somebody moved it. And somebody took it and moved it.
Wow.
And he refurbished it and reopened it as a restaurant, and it was a restaurant, again, several restaurants up until 2012. So it did take us a full year. It was still COVID. It was 2020. So getting work done, getting equipment, everything took twice as long. And we found some things. We had to replace some beams and structural. But now it's absolutely beautiful. We had a fantastic designer who even pushed it a little more than what my original vision is. It's beautiful. I mean, I'm not just saying it because it's mine, but it is a beautiful place inside. And very functional and comfortable and just a great environment to enjoy, great food and wine. So it took us a year. We opened, but during that year, it was still COVID. So we were selling wine online pretty much that whole year, meeting people in the parking lot and bringing cases out to them. And then we opened, it'll actually be our 4th anniversary in November of this year of being open fully to the public.
So it's relatively new.
Yeah, it's new. Yeah, it's still a new project.
And how do you make sure that your staff has sufficient knowledge
we train and train and train and taste. And I am so blessed because I have an incredible team. A lot of them are young people. They come in not necessarily knowing a little or anything about wine, and I'm just amazed at them, how quickly they learn, how enthusiastic they are, how they, in a really nice, down-to-earth way, relate it to our customers and just make it a great place to enjoy food and wine. They're really great people.
And yourself as a wine expert, how do you make wine accessible and less intimidating to people? Yeah,
I've always been about take the snobbiness out of wine and just sort of talk about it in real terms and in honest terms to people. But people can, they'll understand if you tell them. And maybe when we talk about some of the wines we're going to have, we can talk about that a little bit. But tell them the why of why a wine tastes that way, and they get it. And it makes it even more relatable to them, I think. And pairing it with the right food is also a lot of fun.
Well, we can take a little dive into that. Let's talk about the two different kinds of Bordeaux. Wine number one, Bordeaux.
So that's the Mouton?
Yeah.
So I'll bring them both up, I think, maybe, if that's okay. Yeah. So we've got two wines from Bordeaux. And one of the things I talk about when I talk about wine almost any time, whether it's a wine class or to understand wine, there's sort of only three, and also just to get through the Master of Wine blind tasting, I had to distill it down to, there's sort of three big buckets that everything that influences a wine style, quality, price, flavor is based on, and each one of them are a huge topic. But the first is the grapes. So the grapes bring their own characteristic of flavor. They're just like apples, bananas, peaches, whatever. But grapes are also very susceptible to subtle changes in the environment where they grow. So if you plant the same grape in 3 different places with slightly different soils, slightly different hillsides, slightly different climate, you're going to get 3 different kinds of wine. And so Bordeaux, like many regions, is a region made up of many small regions. The 2 biggest divisions are the left bank, which is a little bit warmer climate. It's a little closer to the ocean. It's got mainly gravel soils. And as a result, the blend of grapes, all Bordeaux's are pretty much a blend of up to 3 to 5 grape varieties, tends to be Cabernet Sauvignon dominant because it likes a warm climate. The supporting role is Merlot and Cabernet Franc and sometimes Petit Verdot and Malbec. It produces wines that are a little bit bigger boned, a little more structure because Cabernet has more tannin. If you go 25, 30 kilometers to the east, you're now a little further from the Atlantic. There's an estuary in the middle called the Gironde River that also moderates the climate. The Atlantic moderates the climate. It's a little higher altitude, so it's a tad cooler, and it's a little further away from the influence of the ocean, and it's more limestone-based soils. That reverses. It's same church, different pew. So instead of having Cabernet, which likes the warmer climate, be the dominant one, Merlot is the dominant grape of the right bank, because the limestone soils and the cooler climate, slightly cooler climate and away from the sea, play that role. And so this is 82% Cabernet, 16% Merlot, give or take, and it may be a few percentage points sometimes at Petit Verdot. This is 90% Merlot with a 10% blend of mostly Cabernet Franc and a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. Right bank wines, because they have more Merlot, which is a little less tannic and structured than Cabernet, are a little more giving, a little rounder, a little more red fruit versus the dark cedar cassis that you get here. Both create wines that are extremely long-lived. Most of the time they need some time in the bottle before you actually want to even open them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other little factors that go into make the difference between these 2.
Wow, that's very interesting. It's not just the grapes, it's also the
Right,
climate.
so it's the grape, it's the terroir, and then it's the winemaking. So what does the winemaker do with it? And some winemakers want to make very inexpensive wine. They blend it, they process it, and it's $12 in a big bottle, and it tastes like generic wine. Other growers are there to sometimes stamp their own personal, Cree wine. It's going to be big and oaky and powerful all the time. Others are there to capture the nuance of the place and the terroir, which again, the terroir is all the things that influence how the grapes ripen in that specific place. And that's what really sort of defines the entire French organization of the wine trade, because it's called Appellation Contrôlée. It's all about the place being the most important thing.
Let's move on to talk about 2 Burgundies.
Sure. So Bordeaux, down in the southwest of France, much warmer than it is in Burgundy. And so here we have 2 different wines from Burgundy. Again, like Bordeaux, Burgundy is a region made up of many smaller sub-regions. There's the Côte de Nuits and the Côte de Beaune. There's Chablis in the north. And each has its own unique little sub-style. But there's also a hierarchy here, and there's a hierarchy here.
Of course.
This is a Premier Grand Cru Class A. So again, Bordeaux is classified. Every vineyard is got a name, and it's got a legal designation and where it stands in this classification, which was done way back in 1855. There are 5 Premier Grand Cru Class A's, and then there's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then there's a number of there's the Haut-Médoc and a number of other regions. Pomerol's never been classified, so it doesn't really have one, but it can make great wines. Burgundy has its own cru system, again, based on each little particular parcel. Each little village has its own hierarchy of vineyards. So a wine that just is labeled Bourgogne can come from anywhere in Burgundy. This one I know comes from the Ranceville vineyard because it says it on there, and I'll talk about that in a little minute. But every vineyard has a name, a designation, and it's either Bourgogne, it's Premier Cru, it's Village, Grand Cru, and this is a Grand Cru at the very top of the pinnacle, and the very best vineyards fall into that category. Very expensive, pretty rare, and magnificent. Always 100% Pinot Noir if it's in Burgundy and it's red, unless it's from Beaujolais, but that's sort of a different story.
Wow, it's very interesting. And tell us a little bit your Cree Wine Club.
Yeah, so the wine clubs are, again, created for a couple of reasons. One, to sort of reward and create a nice experience for our customers, because that's what makes the whole world go around.
Yeah.
And we have multiple levels. There's 4. You're either getting 3, 6, or 12 bottles. And it's roughly 150 a quarter, 300 or 550. And then we have the Masters Collection, which is $800, and you get 6 bottles of higher end wines. And we're highly curated. We taste every single wine. We pretty much taste every single wine we sell and approve it before we ever bring it in. It's often slightly got a seasonal bent to it, so it's quarterly. So around the holidays, it would be holiday. In the summer, it's going to be lighter, crisper, maybe a rosé in there. And then the club members get a lot of perks and benefits. So we have what I would call a revolutionary wine pricing for our wine list, for bottles on our wine list, whereas most restaurants will mark up their wine off a cost maybe 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times even. We simply take our retail price and add $35, which makes us significantly less expensive, like sometimes half or more than half the price of most typical wine lists in a restaurant. On Wednesdays, we don't even charge the little $35 fee. We call that Wine Wednesday. But if you're a club member, you just pay retail every time you come.
Wow.
We also have a lot of events and tastings, so club members get discounts on that. They get discounts on the wines they buy to go. So it's a great opportunity. And, they pay, but you get, it's $150 a quarter, but you get that much in wine back. So really, there's no cost. You just get benefits and some nice wine.
Yeah.
So,
and it builds up a loyal customer.
Absolutely, yeah. Wine club customers are terrific.
And tell us a little bit about the Cree Wine classes.
So we do all kinds of classes. So the Master of Wine exam has a lead-up course called the WSET, which is Wine and Spirits Education Trust. And you have to go through that. I don't know if it's a hard mandatory, but it's pretty much mandatory that you pass that. And that's a pretty big investment. Most people, it takes them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years just to get through that. So we teach that up to level 3. And that's it's sort of it's open to consumers. It's a little more trade focused, very broad, very deep. As you go up the levels from 1, 2, 3, it gets harder and exponentially harder. And then we also do our own tastings, wine dinners, and classes that are much more consumer focused. Yeah. And it's really there just to, we do everything from a formal sit down sort of class where it's classroom style and maybe we have a little charcuterie, but, we'll focus on a region, a country. We'll also do a wine dinner where we pair wines with food. I may lead it. We may have a winemaker. We have 2 winemakers coming in to do a fantastic tasting this Saturday. And then we do one called the MW's Table, which is more intimate. We limit it to 16 people. It's me. I pick some wines I'm really excited about. Could be anything. And we just sort of have a round table discussion. Wow. They just pay for the wine in the class, and we let them buy whatever they want off the menu so, we can keep the cost down. Yeah. And that's another big thing. Is what we want to do is make wine very accessible and for our guests. So they can experience things. Like sometimes we'll take, we took this wine. Again, just to give you an idea of our pricing. So if that's $800 retail, if you drank it at the restaurant, it would be $835. There are other restaurants where I've seen that on the list for $3,500. We've also done things like taken it down to the per ounce and charged a very low markup and offer it by the ounce. And we did it one time on a Father's Day weekend, and people were buying their dads, bottles of this once-in-a-lifetime kind of wine for a very modest price, and they could buy an ounce or 2. And it was just so much fun to see people experience a wine that they would just never get exposed to at $3,500 a bottle, but at whatever we were selling it for, $40 an ounce or $50. I mean, it was kind of cool,
And then there's the classes on spirits during weekdays.
Yeah, we do them. We don't do it every weekday. It's the same as we run our wine classes. They're usually in the evening, and we'll take a deep dive. We'll do scotches. We'll do bourbons. We've done sake. We've done, it's whatever is exciting and fun and interesting. We love to deep dive into it. So,
and in the Cree Wine Company, tell us about a time that you had to make a tough decision.
Wow, what would be a time we had to make a tough decision? I think just to jump in and do it in the first place, in the middle of COVID, and think that maybe we had something that would work. Took a little bit of faith. for sure.
And what about the weekly restaurant routine?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. We're full on restaurant. We're open 4 to 9 on Mondays. Sorry, we're closed Mondays, Tuesdays through Fridays, 12 to 9 on Saturday, 11 to 7. But yeah, it's like I look at it as like it's showtime. There's this lead up to opening. We do a pre-show and taste, and again, we really are high on education for our staff, so they know they're comfortable and they can talk about the wines. We taste things so that they can recommend things that they love to our customers. And there's this whole wind up, and then it's sort of showtime, and the whole restaurant starts to have this flow. Especially in the winter when you walk in, the fireplace is going and the kitchen's cooking. You can smell the food. Chef will send out a dish sometimes for us to all taste and see, and we'll taste a little wine with it. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of energy.
What kind of dishes does the kitchen offer?
Andrew Latanzio is probably one of the most talented chefs I've ever worked with. His mom is Portuguese and his dad's family side is Italian, so I think he's got a lot of influence there. We did a wine dinner where he had just come back from a week and a half or 2 weeks traveling through Portugal and sort of recreated those experiences. Yeah. But he can cook almost in any genre. I mean, his Japanese, Asian, Italian, classic French, and it's a mix of all, and sort of American tradition. And we have everything from this amazing, we call Sicilian fried chicken, and an unbelievable Perryville burger, to pan-seared foie gras, short ribs, sweet bread, like really the whole gamut. And the menu changes all the time. There's some standards that stay on, but we change seasonally, weekly. There's specials. There's all kinds of things always going on, and we pair every wine. Every dish has a suggested wine to go with it.
Huh. And what's it like in terms of owning your own place? What's that feel like?
It's very rewarding. I mean, it's a lot of work, obviously, but it is rewarding to see it all come together. To me, the biggest goals are one, make it a great place for our customers so that they come in, they have a fantastic experience, enjoy great food, great wine. And then on the other side is making a great place for my team, for all the people that make it happen to work. A place where it's rewarding, they learn. A lot of them come, they work for us for some period of time, and many go into much bigger careers in the wine business. Others are using it to get themselves through college and then go do other things. And it's just, for me, it's great to provide that pathway. And then we have others who, that's what they really love to do.
Well, given your worldwide knowledge of wines, what do you see the place of New Jersey wineries?
I see a lot happening. I'm really impressed. They work so hard. They've come a long way. They've learned. They've traveled all over. When I talk to people like the ones that are closest are probably Mike Beneducci and Alba. I mean, these guys are seriously great winemakers, and they've traveled and they've tweaked and refined. And I just think the level of wine that they're making is really pretty great. Meadowbrook Winery is a new one. Also, there's so many to think of it. I hate to lead anybody else. Mount Salem, and they're all local to me. And there's a movement now to have Hunterdon have its own AVA, which is a legitimate wine region, and it deserves it. It's a unique place with unique terroir, unique climate, unique soils, and I think that'll be a great thing for Hunterdon wineries.